Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today. For those that I haven't met before, my name is Mark Payne. I'm the Principal Consultant here at Sooner Safer Happier, based out of Perth, Western Australia. It's great to see that we've got a great bunch of people coming online to listen to this conversation here about how do we actually move beyond transformation and then start to consistently deliver value. Because from a Sooner Safer Happier perspective, what we see quite often is a lot of organisations investing heavily in transformation programs, whether it's new ways of working, new structures, those kind of things. But when the program ends, like the big question is did it actually change how value gets delivered? So we can make all these changes, but did it ultimately tangibly result in anything? So today's session is exactly about that. It's not transformation as an event, but transformation that's something that actually sticks. And more importantly, not only did it stick, it's how it's actually evolved into value management as a core organizational capability. And so what makes this session, I think, even more powerful is it isn't theory. It's a real life story from an organization that's transitioned from a technology transformation program into a BAU, into an operating model, and then further evolved it into now value as part of how the organization just runs every day. So I had the privilege of being involved in part of this journey when it was earlier on. So I see some familiar faces on the call in addition to Olivia. So Nicole and Monica, great to see you again. And it was particularly around the design of the system of work, and it was really pleasing to see how some of that has actually enabled some of this shift. But what's really stood out for me and why I was so keen to bring this story to the community was everything that was done here was right-sized for the organisation P&N Group. And what I mean by that is P&N Group isn't massive in terms of its size, and it doesn't have endless funding. But what it's been able to do is it's found a way to align strategy to execution. It's found a way to embed value conversations into governance. And so I think this is what makes this story so relevant and real. So I think you're going to get a lot out of it once we get into it. So with that, let me introduce our guest speaker, Olivia. Olivia is the Head of Value Management at P&N Group. I've had the absolute pleasure of crossing paths with Olivia on multiple occasions throughout the journey. Not only is she an amazing operator, but she's just an awesome human being as well. So if you ever get the opportunity to cross paths with her, you'll thoroughly enjoy it. Olivia's been at the centre of this journey from the start of the transformation to where it is now. And so what we're going to hear from Olivia today is a little bit about the journey from transformation to value management, what that's meant in terms of operating model, how they've embedded value across strategy, delivery and governance. And most importantly, Olivia's going to touch on some of the results that they're seeing as well. So this is like a rare opportunity to hear directly from someone that's doing the work, not just talking about it. So Olivia will probably talk for about 40 minutes-ish. And then what we'll do is we'll open it up for Q&A. So I'd encourage you to think about what you're hearing, what it means in your context. And then if you're comfortable, feel free to add your comments in the chat as we go, because we'll refer to that for some of the Q&A. Or otherwise we can wait till the end and start to fire off some questions as well. So with that, over to you, Olivia.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you for that lovely introduction. Very excited for this chat. So thanks, Jen, Mark and team for having me, and really looking forward to any questions and opportunities for further deep dive that you might have after the presentation as well. So just a quick check that you can see my screen okay. Awesome. Good start. Cool. So Mark's given a bit of an introduction into who I am, but just to kind of set the scene a little bit. So my role, I guess, throughout my career has been in transformation and operating model design, with about 10 years experience helping organisations design and embed modern ways of working. My background prior to working in banking was in management consulting, where I led strategy and transformation initiatives on the ground globally, so across Australia, America, Canada, and Africa, spanning multiple industries. That was until I found the love for banking and customer-owned banking, to be specific. So now I'm working at P&N Group. I've been here for about 4 years. I was initially brought on at the commencement of the transformation program, as Mark mentioned, to design and embed our contemporary ways of working. And sort of fast forward those 4 years, I'm now currently heading up the group's value management function, which we'll deep dive into today. Value management is focused on ensuring that our tech and transformation initiatives deliver measurable, sustainable outcomes, and of course, those that are aligned to organisation strategy. So a little bit about who we are as P&N Group. So for those of you who don't know, P&N Group operates across 2 brands. So P&N Bank over in WA on the West Coast with about 13 branches servicing Perth to Bunbury. And then BCU Bank over on the East Coast in northern New South Wales and southeast Queensland with about 14 branches from the Sunshine Coast all the way down to Port Macquarie. As I mentioned, we are a customer-owned bank, which means our customers and our owners are one in the same. There's no additional conflict with shareholders like the larger listed banks. And up the top there, you'll see our vision. So our vision is to be Australia's leading customer-owned banking group. And this drives us day by day and operates as the top of our golden thread. Mark spoke a little bit around scale and size, and so just to kind of set the context for you all in terms of what that looks like for us in numbers. So P&N Group are in the top 10 largest mutual banks in Australia. However, we aren't large, I guess, by way of relating our size to some of the larger listed banks. So in terms of giving you a bit more of that view of what that looks like, we're currently about 200,000 customers and growing. That's across the West and the East. We've got approximately 600 staff employed across P&N Group, or specifically P&N Bank and BCU Bank. And from a growth perspective, we're about $8.2 billion in assets and $7.5 billion in deposits. So hopefully this gives you a bit of a clear understanding of our size and how we've managed to do this or follow this approach for us. However, what we'll discuss today, you can really do this as any size organisation. So kind of keen to hear reflections on what this might mean for you in your organisations as well. All right, so I thought I would kind of commence with a bit of, I guess, scaffolding around our journey. So take you through the process that we've been on from technology transformation through to value management and our today. So back in 2019, we had our merger between P&N Bank and BCU Bank. So both of those brands coming together under P&N Group. Post that point, there was a lot of merger implementation activity, as you could imagine. And so following the merger implementation, we then had a focus on how might we further create efficiencies around brand harmonisation, whether that be around back office processes, how we might operate together, but also how we collectively service our customers. So we embarked on a transformation program, which we called Simple Bank. It was set up to deliver on 5 key dial shifters for our organisation and realise that further value through additional harmonisation of our processes post-merger. And importantly, it was also set up to test and learn our new ways of working, which we called Apex. This transformation started with a group of about 3 people and soon grew to about 70 people at its peak, with some familiar faces on the call who've been a driving part of that whole process. And throughout that process to grow from 3 people to 70, we were building and buying capability along the way. Really, the summary of the program for us was around us being able to see if we could deliver value sooner, safer, and with an engaged and capable workforce. So fast forward 2 years post that point, we proved that. It was a huge success for us. We delivered our dial shifter outcomes early. So we then focused on embedding the learnings in a future operating model. And our first step to do that was to launch our first perpetual squad. So our first perpetual squad, it was essentially our first mover. It can be defined as a squad that was no longer a part of the wrapper of the program, but one that was then operationalised into the bank's operating model, which was to support our exit out of program state and into our future target operating model. A year after that, in 2024, we announced a new structural change within the transformation delivery arm. And this saw the introduction of value management, delivery management, and platform management. This evolution really was to focus on further clarity and simplicity in how we operated, and with enhanced collaboration, whilst enhancing the 3 key roles and important crafts across all of those. So this saw the split of our transformation delivery function into value management and delivery management, which enabled us to launch the helicopter and the boat analogy. So in the helicopter is value management continuing to look forward, but able to kind of dip in and out of the boat, which is the delivery management team who are on the ground delivering the value daily. The other part of the key shift in this operating model here was really to embed our 3 key roles, but also with our technology counterparts as well, as I mentioned. The next step post that is essentially where we are today. So value management is a part of our identity. It's really around what it means for us really is around us being outcomes focused. Value is a fabric of conversations at all levels across the organisation, and that's a really important factor of all of this is that it starts from the top, but it also very much relies on the bottom up. So value consistently at all levels. As a function, value management, we are 6 people now, so we're inclusive of product ownership, value and process experts, as well as portfolio management. We are absolutely ever evolving, continuing to mature and always open to doing things differently. And we aim to balance our kind of bias towards action, getting things done, but also with a mindset of why and taking the opportunity to pause at those right moments and always considering what is the value. All in all, the model that we've leveraged and the framework we continue to build out in value management is scalable for future growth for us as an organisation, whether that be via organic growth or inorganic growth. So when I was reflecting on, I guess, our journey, I was really hoping to distill what our approach looks like for a broad audience across industries in a simple way. So essentially for us, I guess our approach can be distilled into 6 key principles, which I'll talk through to each of you. So the first one there was around mindset driven. So our approach from transformation through to value management was around removing the stigma that was ways of working or operating model design. Although that's my world that I kind of live and breathe, and I'm really confident and comfortable to talk about those types of words, it's absolutely not something that the rest of the organisation kind of know or feel confident with. So what we did was we distilled our model into 4 key mindsets that the whole organisation could understand. We were really conscious to meet them where they were. And those 4 key mindsets that I mentioned are progress over perfection, customer outcomes first, self-organising and proactive, and comfort with uncertainty. The next principle in our approach was always around thinking big and starting small. We had the goal in mind, but we took small actionable steps to achieve it. So an example of this was launching our first perpetual squad, as I mentioned, in the sales and marketing CRM space. This was for us to prove the model at program transition before scaling fully to operational mode. So I guess the key learning here is that you can do this at any size. All you need to do is essentially pick the scale of the first move that makes sense to you and your organisation. For us, it was a 9-person squad that had clear business ownership, was operating extremely well, and this worked for us. It built the business case for us to take the next step. The third principle there is around investing in capability and growing. The transformation for us meant bringing in entirely new skill sets to the organisation. So how we did this was we carefully considered the build buy ratio, and we more often than not, invested in experienced practitioners in different areas who then were able to build their capability across the organisation and be responsive to where we were headed and the goals that we refined quarter on quarter. Then that leads us to bimodal. So this was really a conscious recognition of our DNA. We at P&N Group are not a software delivery house. We rely on external vendor partners, and we likely will continue to have that element. We're also heavily regulated, and that likely won't change. Therefore, we couldn't essentially be entirely end-to-end agile. So there was a world for mode 1 and mode 2 delivery. And we were conscious to make sure we could design a model and test a model that could coexist with the right governance structures across both of those modes, the right guardrails, and also clear expectations. Number 5 is around action over detailed design. We maintained our bias towards action and were quick to test and learn. This was really a mindset that we continued to hold true across the whole journey that I spoke through earlier. Whilst we did invest in design, we did it iteratively and were proving and testing the model as we went. So the business case essentially was writing itself. When we launched our first perpetual squad in the CRM sales and marketing space, they maintained delivery pace. One day they were a squad within a program, and then the next day they were our first perpetual squad with greater connection to the business, but no change in purpose, delivery pace, values, or lighthouse metrics. And then the last point there, which really supported us in our transition and now through to having value management as a key part of how we operate, is always on value. So value for our members, as you would have seen through our vision, is at the heart of everything we do. We have continued to double down on this as we have progressed, always asking why and always having that golden thread connection right up to multi-year strategy, and then challenging this at all levels. I saw the contrary of this a lot in my consulting years. So I was involved in a lot of development of these models, designing and launching modern ways of working. Organizations would invest heavily in designing and building the engine, but then they'd come unstuck when they didn't have the quality to feed the engine. So we consciously avoided this and we did this in a way of always considering the what, the why, and the how collectively at the same time. So now I thought it might be nice for us to take a look at the value model that we operate at the moment. So this is our, value throughout the organisation, and it's multi-tiered. So commencing right at the top, how do we make sure value management is a part of the conversations across our whole life cycle? It starts with strategic alignment. So we have our multi-year strategy, and then we have what we call our annual dial shifters. These operate very importantly to orient the whole organisation around our why and our key metrics for the year. And just noting on this, which is more of a recent change, which has been a game changer for us as an organisation, is that no change work outside of these dial shifters gets prioritised for the year. So this essentially operates for us as the start of the chain on our why, our outcomes, and our value. Moving on down to our initiative life cycle. So once we have done the initial planning, our initiatives will start to follow through the initiative life cycle of ideation, discovery, and delivery. And how value plays out across all of these stages is multifaceted. So we have value identification up front. We have value management, maximisation, and assurance throughout. And then we have a consideration around value realisation, which occurs towards the tail end of delivery, and will work hand in hand with business areas where the change is being delivered to ensure we can consider things like operating model changes, process changes, mindsets before things are launched so that the value can be maximised from day one. And then supporting this process, we have a robust, transparent and tangible benefits realisation approach. So this is an approach that we've absolutely evolved over time. If I think back to sort of 4 years ago, kind of at the early stages of our program, we thought that value was features and widgets. And it's been quite interesting kind of looking back at some of our old reports, but we have transitioned with this quite significantly, and now we've evolved to the point where the value for us is actually tangible impacts to budgets. It's now about organisation level outcomes, and we're friends with finance. So we're outcome and value led through this whole process. We're not tech led, we're not process led, and we're certainly not pet project led. A specific example I wanted to share with you all, which is around the fact that we are outcome led and adaptable and responsive to our business requirements, which may be changing as we evolve throughout the year. So an example here is our contact centre. They wanted to free up capacity to be able to spend more time on better servicing our customers. We've recently just implemented an auto call summary wrap-up feature within our CRM. So this for us is a world-class example of integrating our voice platform with our CRM and significantly reducing, or in some cases actually completely negating, the need for any after-call work, which means that our agents in the contact centre are able to get back onto the phones to servicing our next member. And then the last piece there, which underpins the model, is the right-sized safety and governance approach, which I'll double click into a little bit more detail on the next slide. So safety and governance, I like to call this, I guess, the safety net. This safety net for us enables us to have that flexibility and adaptability that I spoke about, and truly respond. So our governance process, which has been built over time, is paramount for us to be able to build the confidence in our executive and our board and essentially enable us to deliver more value sooner. So there's a number of different elements, I guess, to this safety net, which I thought made sense to talk through from a cadence perspective. So firstly, at the annual level, we have our annual strategy, as I mentioned, which is a focus around our annual dial shifters for the year. This is, of course, tied to our multi-year strategy that orients the whole organisation. We have safety teams who are engaged early in our annual roadmaps. Safety teams for us is a phrase that refers to essentially teams across the organisation that maintain and are responsible for specific guardrails. So for example, cyber, data, risk, etc. They're some of our safety teams that are really key to engage early in our annual roadmaps. Then moving through into quarterly. So we have quarterly increment planning, which the teams are actually going through at the moment as we speak. And the process for this is around taking our annual roadmaps and essentially double clicking into the slice that is the quarter. And prior to doing that, it's a deep dive around the value, delivery and budget health, taking a bit of a stock take in terms of, are we where we said we thought we would be? What else needs to shift? How's the organisation going in terms of alignment to those dial shifters? Are there any pivots, etc., that are required? Then from a monthly perspective, we have our portfolio level governance forum. The focus for this forum, which is with executive sponsorship groups, is around value, delivery and budget review. So we'll do that monthly and the teams will be involved in preparing the reports for those. And something that has been a game changer for us in terms of how we simplistically talk to what could be a complex topic that is value is we leverage what we call speedos, which we use to report, which is connected to our annual target. So we have our monthly report on those year on year. And these monthly governance forums, the reporting that we use for those is the exact same reporting, stripping out some of the detail that goes directly to board. So that consistency for us around the true transparent nature of how we talk to and refine our value and then therefore show how we're progressing to that is something that's transparent across the whole organisation. And then lastly, I guess from a daily perspective, so the safety net for us is ensuring we have those safety teams that I mentioned earlier embedded throughout that initiative lifecycle. So for us, governance is right-sized, and the trust in this at that board and executive level enables us to have flexibility throughout. So this safety net plus the golden thread that I spoke through really enables us to truly pivot and respond. And we are very open and receptive to feedback on this ongoing. We've just recently completed a review and an effectiveness survey with all of those who take part as key stakeholders across this process. So are continually open to continuous improvement as we move through and further mature in this process. So I was really keen to kind of bring some of these concepts to life for you all. And what you see on the page in front of you now is essentially that model I've spoken to on a page. It illustrates some of those concepts we were just speaking to visually, as well as what that safety net looks like in practice. But I wanted to talk through a real example that's in flight at the moment and is close to the hearts of some of those that are on the call. So I spoke to earlier our dial shifters that we have, which orient the organisation from an annual perspective. So an example of one of those for us this year is the dial shifter around retail loan mix. So what this is a clear strategy around the mix of our broker originated and our proprietary originated loans. It's an organisation-wide strategic goal with clear metrics and a clear scorecard, and it's tracked monthly and reported in key forums. So super transparent in terms of how we're progressing on this and our other dial shifters as an organisation. Then moving on down through to the next level, we have our investment funding held at the investment theme level. So what this looks like in this specific example is the products investment theme. We have a clear cost envelope, which is protected for this investment theme, and we have value targets, which are set at the commencement of the year and are aligned to the dial shifters, and in this case, the retail loan mix dial shifter. Reported on monthly in terms of the progress here from a value perspective. We have an executive sponsor, which is our Chief Data and Propositions Officer to lead this, and we have our business sponsors, which are our heads of retail. So what we have to support that structure is essentially then an aligned team with the autonomy to amend roadmaps as required and pivot based on real scenarios, the market, how customers are responding, etc., regulation, etc. So an example of this, I guess, more recently, when we were coming up to Q3 of this year, this dial shifter was lagging. The products investment theme, guided by their product owner, was able to pivot the following quarter to commence an MVP go-to-market product that will target proprietary uplift, and that's in flight now. So the turnaround time for getting something like that up and running was really short, and that was guided by the fact that we have these structures in place that enable us to have that confidence and ability to truly respond. So I guess the key message here in terms of this visual depiction of our model is, with the right safety and governance and the key roles embedded at all levels, a clear golden thread that orients the organisation. These really are the ingredients that enable us to be adaptive and responsive to our members' market conditions and business performance with ease. So what's the value of us being able to, I guess, implement this approach and more specifically with the timescale of, I guess, the last about 12 months, what have we been able to achieve by doing this? So the first one there is CTI reduction. So we've experienced significant cost to income ratio reduction, which really has enabled us to, quote unquote, do more with less. Create leaner operating models, reduce handoffs, and ultimately get value into the hands of our customers sooner. The next one there is customer experience metric improvement. So we continue to see improvement in our NPS and CSAT in the areas that we place focus on. Capacity unlock in the contact centre. So I spoke to this example earlier, but the capacity unlock is for the purpose of reinvestment into improvement in our service levels. We've predominantly leveraged new technologies such as AI and developing our world-class CRM to automate the menial tasks and basically free up capacity to continue to improve how we offer that service delivery to our customers. Additionally, we've had capacity unlock in our operations area, and this is for realisable savings. So we've had process improvements, ultimately benefiting our customers and getting them into their new homes faster. Aligned to that one is home loan processing time reduction, and we've seen a drop in this both in our broker and proprietary channels, which has been excellent to see. Another one here, which is around significantly improving new products' speed to market. So an absolutely whopping improvement of 200% in the lending space in terms of getting new products to market within a 12-month window, and 600% in the deposit space, which is a credit to the laser focus that our products investment team have been able to place on their roadmaps. And then lastly, but very much an important element for us in banking, 100% compliance on time and to a high quality. So where to from here for us? I guess we've talked a lot about some of the great stuff that we've been able to achieve, but where to from here? There's still a lot. I guess we're never really done, and although looking back over a 4-year window, we've progressed significantly, which is awesome to see. There's a lot more maturing that we would like to kind of go through. So continuous improvement, this is really around improving our processes and our approach daily, and leveraging the diverse skill sets that we have across the team to be able to do that. Secondly, maturing the function and therefore maturing the value conversations. We've started to codify our processes and our approach to value management, as I've spoken through a little bit today. And this is really having an impact across the whole organisation as well as externally. So it's improving how we talk to regulators and the market around what and why we have delivered certain initiatives, and the outcome for doing so. And then lastly, I guess just more value for more value. So collaborating across our organisation for more value throughput and greater outcomes. And this is really why our function exists, so that we can maintain a future lens on everything that we do, consistently evaluate for value and seek to maximise value at all stages, and ultimately to get more value in the hands of our members sooner, which is directly aligned to our vision and purpose. So that's all from me. I might